common sense policy about guns.
Common sense gun reforms.
In this video, we're going to talk about school shootings and whether or not it has more so to do with the gun laws.
We can't wait. Take the firearms first
Or
and then
the
go
human
for it.
psyche, society itself, right?
I've got students down under the table, kids. Heads under the table.
So much permeating through that community, only the beginning.
So this isn't to be political.
I don't need to wait another minute to take common sense steps.
It's just my channel covers a lot on spirituality, the human mind, psychology, things of that nature.
Stay in line to pass off.
I feel like this does very much so have a lot to do with that. So feel free in the comment section to leave your opinions, and maybe in another video I'll put it in the video and we'll talk about it. But from my perspective, it goes back to this old saying, which is something like, if a child doesn't feel the warmth of a village, it's going to burn that village down to feel that warmth, right? So what that's saying is it's going to do everything it can to get some sort of attention, right? So if it's not getting this attention from some source of love and compassion,
Blah, 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 blah.
from society, giving it that attention and care. And this isn't an excuse by no means. This is just what's happening from a psychological perspective. In return, it's going to react in that way. If it has to get attention from doing something negative, it's going to do something negative to get that attention, right?
Sadistic, corrosive man.
And I feel like that's what's happening, right? You have places like Chicago, which have very strict gun laws, and they have some of the highest crime rates, right? So we could kind of argue this politically back and forth in that way, and I feel like I would still have the upper hand in that. Like I said, we're not going to get into politics. Just to make that point that you can have the strictest gun laws and still have crimes, right? And I've noticed in some of the places that have strict gun laws and they don't have a very high rate of crime, it also seems more civilized, right? Like their healthcare system or something along that lines is just better. And society itself, maybe their media isn't as corrupted.
Awesome, gnarly looking suit. Love the orange NASA. You get a thumbs up from Congressman George Santos.
So they're not fighting as much, but definitely in America, not that we just suck, but we have a psychological issue, this materialistic need for power and dominance, and we're just quick to screw our neighbor over to have our own success, I guess you could say.
I won! I won!
I won!
I won! I won!
And I feel like that's what's happening to our kids, right? They're not feeling this kind of love. They're not feeling this kind of compassion. So in return, they're committing these violent acts, these violent crimes. And not to mention the more the media publicizes this, right? To just have whatever side of politics get their way. They just make this worse. It gives the kids these ideas, hey, that's how I can get this attention. Like that's the biggest fire they can start, the most warmth they can get, right? It's just go do a school shooting and then be put on TV for it, right? And if it's bad enough, the kid doesn't care and just kills themselves, right? And at that point, it's not necessarily about the attention. They were just very angry and hateful. So I don't feel like the news and the media is helping this in any way, you know, just by asking if it's about the guns or not. We really need to focus on ourselves, right? I'm not saying don't strive to be your best self, right? No, go make that money. Go make the best life you can for yourself, but do it in compassion and not so much fear, right? Like some other videos talk about. Some people are afraid of not being afraid, right? They'll say, but if you're not afraid of what happens to these people in another country, you know, they're starving, then who's going to help them? Now you're just afraid of being afraid. Or not being afraid. I mean, you're afraid of not being afraid. That's just a psychological twist that, of course, when you're always operating from that place, it's just you're never really gonna be happy in the long run. You can still have compassion and still help those starving people in other countries, right? It's just you're not doing it from a place of fear. And fear is not always your friend, right? We say ego is needed for survival, but oftentimes ego, this fear will freeze you in whatever kind of danger it might be, and that gets you killed. So now this ego, this fear has frozen you, and you're dead like a fool. Which my point is, all you can do in fear, you can do in love tenfold, right? So
Be happy.
and again, this isn't to make any kind of excuse. It's just to actually take a step toward stopping this, right? So maybe some people see this and then recognize, and this starts with the adults themselves, not just the kids. Maybe they'll recognize, hey, maybe my kid doesn't need to watch the TV so much or need to be on their phone so much. Maybe I need to hug them and love them and take them outside and go show them some kind of attention.
Spiritual tools.
Maybe I need to check on my own child and see if they feel any kind of hate inside. Every day when my kids come home, I ask them, hey, are you happy? You feel love inside? Nobody's messing with you, are you? And if you feel sad inside, let me know. If you notice anybody else is sad, go ask them, take care of each other.
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon.
And I don't know, I think more people are worried about, or rather they have the name brand clothes and what their status is versus just really caring about their neighbor, right? I mean, this country, even the news likes to talk up religion, so let's treat our neighbor like ourselves. This sounds kind of cliche to say too, but again, it's not the gun that's pulling the trigger, right? It's a thought. The thought in your head is what pulls that trigger. So regardless of whether you have guns there or not, if an individual feels like that inside, you're going to find some way to do it. Look at the Boston bombing. I mean, you just make a pressure cooker bomb or whatever that was. There's always, if there's a will, there's a way, is my point. So we can't just keep blaming the guns. I feel like the more we blame the guns, it's just kind of a way to take that responsibility off of ourselves, right? Because you might have to look at yourself and ask, am I asking my child if they're okay? Are they having a good time at school? Do they feel loved? Am I making them feel loved? Are they happy in school? Because some kids, not to make an excuse again, they may not be suited to fit in a kind of school environment, right? Just like some people aren't suited to fit in a competitive work environment. You might have to ask them that. You might have to see if they need to be homeschooled or be put in some kind of different classes. I feel like, of course, this is obvious, but definitely these years that they're growing up is the most important, especially for their psyche. So if they're not happy doing something, figure something out for them. At least check on them and see if they're happy with what they're doing, if they're happy in their life, Because really, like I said, I feel like as long as we just keep pointing our finger at the guns, it's just a way to keep the attention off of ourselves. In society, ourselves, right? Again, this isn't an excuse for these kids doing that, right? But I'm saying this because I do care, so don't you unfollow me because you feel like I'm supporting guns. No, whether you want guns or not, I feel like this is the issue, and this is my opinion, right? This is psychological advice, if you want to put it that way. And I don't know. Like I said, I feel like the news is kind of making it worse. I feel like the more we talk about the gun laws, the more we're getting away from the real issue, and it has a lot to do with our society and how we're raised. Most kids, I feel like, are kind of raised by TV, not necessarily by the village, by the tribe, by our society, And I get it because it's hard to even let them go outside and play by themselves these days because of how dangerous it is. But maybe it's really not even that dangerous. Maybe it's just the news for you. So at the end of the day, my point is, whether or not you support gun laws or you think it is just so much society itself, Let's just try pointing the finger back at ourselves for once, because I've never once seen it on the news or anywhere else. Hey, it could be us. Maybe it's society itself, our mind state. I've never seen them say that, so I feel like we could give that a try. And maybe there'll come a point where someday we're so comfortable nobody wants to buy a gun anymore, because they can trust their neighbor. They can take that dagger and just lay it down, instead of feeling like they have to always have it behind their back like this, just protecting themselves. Let's make that trust the dagger.